If we're gonna start anywhere, we gotta have a goal. Is they're really trying to use that ground force or get into that deep squat. Hopefully we'll have more things to do in this segment in the future, but we'll see. Hello and welcome to Swing Thoughts, my new series where I talk you through my practices, what I'm working on, and how I'm trying to fix it. When it comes to playing golf, I'm always chasing perfection, but when it comes to my practices, I have a tendency to get a bit too technical. If you're like me, your biggest issue is consistency on the golf course, usually stemming from too many swing thoughts. I film most of my practices and most of my rounds of golf, being a golf YouTuber, and one of the things I don't do enough of is tracking my progress. So that's the main purpose behind this series. Now, I am obviously not a golf professional, but one thing that I am good at is goal setting, strategic planning, and gathering data and doing analysis. So in this series, the goal is not to give you guys swing instruction, but to give you insight into what I'm working on and how I track my process, and teach you guys how to gather and analyze data, set goals, plan, and execute that plan. My initial plan for this series is to create 3 episodes and try out a bunch of different segments in each episode, kind of like you would a pilot for a TV show, to try and figure out what works. I want this series to be as helpful and interactive as possible, so feel free to leave comments with what you guys found most enjoyable, or if there's anything else you'd like to see in this series. Keeping to the theme of what I want the Odyssey brand to be, most of the segments in this series are going to be about keeping a positive attitude, how to stay healthy and avoid injuries, and how to create actionable steps to achieve your goals. Enjoy! Alright, the first segment is as the title of the series implies, and I'm calling it Swing Thoughts. And in this segment of the show, what I'd like to do is kind of talk through my practices and what I'm working on and how I'm trying to fix it. So I take a ton of video on my phone when I'm at the range or when I'm golfing because I find if I don't have access to the mirrors like I have at home, I need some way to kind of check myself when I'm at the range to make sure that kind of feel and reel are matching. So typically, I'll always be doing drills. I'll have the alignment sticks up and those sorts of things to kind of take my mind out of it and just be focusing on those 1 or 2 things I'm trying to fix throughout the day. So what I'll usually do is I'll film my swings and then I'll kind of pick up the phone and immediately annotate what I was thinking during that swing so I can kind of go back and watch the film and relate certain swing thoughts to what I was trying to do that day. So what I'd like to do in this segment, and I think I'm going to have this segment in every episode because that's kind of the core of what the show's about, is analyzing my swing and trying to get better and better and better, and just kind of talking you through what I'm working on. Okay, so for this first episode, I wanted to start with my videos from May 10th, and I got a couple other days here, May 15th and May 16th. So I'll go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the videos on my phone and kind of watch it in real time and analyze it here. And then on the actual video that you guys are going to see, I'll have the video kind of lined up side by side and be drawing either alignments or whatever I'm working on in the swing. So like I said, I kind of annotate these, so I'm going to go ahead and play it here, and then we'll go ahead and talk through what's going on. All right, had some good swing thoughts while I was on the road. Had to come back, put them into effect. So I saw a video of Chris Como talking about how he wants to keep this like depth here and not have it either the elbow coming in or sucking in or whatever. And that's kind of I either think about like the back elbow or I'm like trying to not pull my hands down. And for some reason that thought process of just keeping this depth here to me just made sense. So as you can see, we got a lot of training aids right now. I basically am disabling my mind except for that singular thought that I'm working on. So band to keep the elbows together and this to keep the chest connected. And then this to make sure we're not coming over plane. But just trying to, that feeling of keeping that depth, I think can kind of alleviate all the other swing thought issues and just like focus on that, because that seems to be keeping me connected. That's a little open face. Contact sounded good though. A little open face though. Let's see if we can. I'm still trying to work on not doing this with my wrists and just. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. So as you can kind of see, the title of the series, there is a lot of swing thoughts going on there. But basically, what I was trying to do at the time of this video, I believe it was May 10th, is my main swing flaw that I'm working through right now is I have the tendency to get a real short backswing. When I do the takeaway, I kind of take the club inside instead of keeping it, as I was kind of mentioning there, kind of away from my body or getting that depth in the swing. So I'm kind of getting it up real close and have a short backswing. And then, but when I'm doing my downswing, I'm really trying to get that rotational body downswing because my swing flaw is to pull my hands. So I'm trying to disable my arms and really swing with the body. And if I'm already so far on the inside and down low with the club, then when I'm swinging with the body like that, my path is going to be very much inside to out. And to compensate for that, I kind of have to whip my shoulder out or kind of get the club face squared up because I'm pulling my hands down and it's coming so much from the inside like that. So the swing flaw we're fixing here is to try and get rid of the pull down. But as you'll see, I'm recording this a couple months in advance here in July. I'm starting with these videos in May because there's several things I wanted to talk through. But you'll find that alongside the pull down of I kind of have the that over the top hitch action now as well. So I don't really feel like I can do like freezers or like slow swings anymore because my action has to be so quick and with my hands to compensate for my swing flaws right now. But that's kind of the baseline of where we're at here is we really have like a hands pull down swing. And I'm trying to get that really like swing with the body and then release the hands through the ball to really get that extra oomph or power and speed. So let's go back to the video here. Let's watch a little bit more. Closing the face properly. I still am trying to get rid of that instinct. So that one's still going to take a while with the open face, but the path, I didn't see the path on that one, but we'll put another one real quick. But that plane is feeling much better. Make sure we fix the wrist this time. Better, still a little. Okay, so that's feeling pretty good. You can see we got a lot of things going on in the video here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the sound and then we're going to go back in slow-mo and kind of analyze this a little bit. So if we look here, let's go ahead and play and I'll expand this. I'm going to rewind this here to the swing. So kind of a couple things to note here. So the stick under our arms is to keep the connection while we're swinging. And the yellow elastic band is, I have the tendency, so naturally when you kind of pull down, the right elbow for me, because I'm a righty, is going to kind of flare out. So what you'll see, or at least what I see with the tour pros, is they have the kind of balloon or the ball in their forearms to kind of keep these together. And that will keep the back arm or the body swinging through the ball instead of, if I pull, of course I'm going to drop that. So this is just really forcing me to keep that connection. So between the elastic and the stick, I'm really making sure that my body has no choice but to be connected. And then the other thing that we see here is, of course, I have the alignment stick in the ground, and I actually put it in front of the ball, not near my feet, because if I'm throwing my hands then in the club's in to out, it'll kind of whack that stick if I do it incorrectly. But if I put something in front of the ball to kind of give myself just a visual target, then I have to at least keep my hands, I'm a more so right plane to get through without whacking that stick. So kind of a dual purpose of that alignment stick on the ground there. And then I also have the one to make sure that I'm swinging on plane and not coming over the top and whipping the club out. So that's the the maddening combination of drills I have going on right now in this video. But the reason I was doing so many drills is because I was really trying to disable everything but that one singular thing I was working on. So back here into the slow-mo, let's actually analyze it a little bit further. So just kind of speed it up here. So I do like that in my waggles, the takeaway, it does look perfectly on plane. So I have really been working hard on that to get it on plane and not bring it so much inside. So if we go real slow, sorry for the speed, but that's looking pretty good. And then we get to the top. It's still not as deep as I would like. It's still a little bit short, but you can kind of see there's that little action right there. It's a little quick, but just kind of the pull down right away. Yep, it's just kind of that quick pull down. So not terrible, but I'm starting with the hips. Little bit of pull down, but I still get through the ball pretty good and stay connected there. And then because I do have that little bit of hitch and downward pull, my wrist is going to be a little bit cupped and that face is going to be coming from the outside and open a little bit, the face is, and that's kind of why we have that slight little bit of cut versus the straight ball, a little bit of open face. And I'm also not necessarily making ball first contact, but whew, I'm getting myself in a whirl here just thinking about all these thoughts again. But ultimately, the swing flaw that I've been trying to fix is to stop the hands pull down and just have a nice connected swing with good depth. But my problem is getting rid of all these thoughts and just kind of making that happen. So that was kind of the first video I wanted to look at. The next one I had was May 15th, another day at the range here. So let's go ahead and watch this one with the sound on. Here you can see we have the alignment stick, the 2 alignment sticks for making sure we're on plane, and just really working on getting good depth in the backswing on the range today. So I do like how this one looks and feels more on plane. It was feeling pretty good that day. I didn't need any of the connection alignment sticks. It's just still, if we were to click on this and go in slow motion here. So the bowed wrist is feeling nice. I've been working on that. But we'll watch it. So the rehearsal looks good, but there you kind of see in that rehearsal, the club kind of whips out a little bit instead of staying on the plane. But that's feeling pretty good right there. Yep, you can see we whack it there on that rehearsal. So really not able to keep that bowed wrist, and it's kind of flipping out here on this day. So that's why we have that alignment stick there, to make sure that we're not doing that and we're instead getting through the ball. So let's go ahead, let's go back to full speed here. And the actual swing is feeling pretty smooth. Take it to the top. So it looks a little collapsed, but the general position I'm okay with. But you can kind of see, so the hips start first, that I do like, but kind of that first action again, right there, you can kind of see the hands pull down a little bit, and the club is a little bit steeper than the plane of the alignment stick. Okay, that pretty much wraps it up for the Swing Thoughts section today. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of this kind of segment. So do you want me to do more of like recommendations, or like talk through some of the drills that I'm working on? Just kind of have like an open discussion forum about swing thoughts or different things that you guys see in the swing. Let me know what you guys think. I really want to hear from you, or kind of see what's going to be the most valuable of this segment for you guys. So for me, it's helpful just to go back and look at this footage and really try to understand when I was thinking this thing, what was the output in the actual swing. So it's helpful because I do try to annotate that stuff when I'm on the range so I can remember it for future use. But like I said, let me know what you guys think, and with that, let's move on to the next segment. This next segment is the other segment that I think is going to be in every single episode of this series, and it's going to be the second half of the title statement of the YouTube video's name. So this segment is one that I'm calling Manifest Your Destiny. Not to be confused with Manifest Destiny and the United States population wanting to expand and conquer all of North America, but this is Manifest Your Destiny. And this is focusing on goal setting, project planning, and how you guys can take actionable steps towards achieving your dreams or your destiny. So how do we get started? Well, as the title might suggest, we need to set a goal. So we need to have a clear understanding of what it is that we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. So the first thing that I like to do is write it down. So I find, and I'm sure there's studies out there that support this, but I find, me personally, that when I write something down and make a to-do list, it's much easier for me to actually make sure that those things get actioned. Versus if I just tell myself that I need to do something, then it could kind of get left by the wayside. So my first advice to you guys when setting a goal is to make sure that you write it down and be as specific as possible. So the more specific you can be, the easier it'll be to action that specific thing. So when we're creating a goal, or when you guys are creating a goal, I think it's important to classify it into a couple different categories. So there's short-term goals and there's long-term goals. And I usually find that my long-term goal is just a bunch of short-term goals that kind of lead me to achieving that long-term goal. So if we were to look specifically at breaking down how we can set a good long-term goal and how we can set a good short-term goal. So for long-term goals, I like to kind of, and me personally, I will kind of get retrospective or do some like thought exercises where every so often I'm just looking at where my life's at and where I want it to be. So I can kind of correlate this to setting a long-term goal, and we can kind of say, well, what do I want my life to look like in 5 or 10 or 20 years? What are the main things that I want to achieve? So that is what I will kind of say is this is what I want my long-term goal to be. Then when I think about going about achieving a long-term goal, what I'll try to do is break it down into a bunch of smaller actionable steps. And we can kind of create a roadmap that'll lead us, okay, if I achieve this and this and this and this and this, then eventually I'll be able to achieve that long-term goal. So that's kind of the first thing that I'll kind of do just at a very basic summary, kind of like top-down view of when I'm looking at how I'm going to go about achieving this long-term goal. Then what I'll do is I'll try to create specific tasks or actions that I'll be able to achieve those different chunks in that goal to achieve the larger goal. So like list what needs to be done, make a roadmap of what needs to be done, those kind of things. So in a general sense, that is how I go about setting a long-term goal. If I'm setting a short-term goal, this will either be something that needs to be done immediately, obviously, as the name might intend or imply there, but these are typically actually when I break up the long-term goal into those like smaller actionable steps. Each one of those will kind of be a short-term goal or smaller milestone to achieve that long-term goal or that big vision. So what I find is really helpful for me in these short-term goals or even in the long-term goals, but is tracking my progress. So this would be kind of my next advice or tip to you guys is the long-term goals can sometimes be overwhelming. Like if I just say set a goal of like, I want to have a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers and I just want to quit my job and just do YouTube all day, from like a far away, like 5,000 mile view, that can seem very, very overwhelming. So it's helpful for me to either stay motivated or to kind of feel accomplished is breaking that long-term goal into like those smaller milestones. And then when I achieve them and kind of cross them off my list, I can kind of feel accomplished about what I did for that smaller goal. So to give you guys some general tips about creating goals, I would say my first tip would to be as specific as possible. Like I kind of mentioned a little bit ago, if you're too vague, it'll be very hard to action. If I just say, I want to make a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers, like I just mentioned the example, I'll just use the same example. I just want to make a YouTube channel and retire from my job. Well, okay, that's all fine and dandy, and I have no problem with you having that as a goal, but how can you go about actually achieving that? So we need to be as specific as possible to make sure that we can make things that will be actionable, that we can actually cross off and achieve. The next tip I want to talk about is how will we track or measure our progress. So once we've made a specific goal, we need to have some different ways to be able to track and make sure that we're either on pace, or maybe we're ahead of pace, or maybe we're behind pace to achieve our goal by our required due date. So I'll talk about this one definitely in several episodes in the future, but these could be things like having, like I just said, a very simple one is just a to-do list of things that need to get done, and if I can get them all done, I'm crossing them off, then I know that I'm working towards achieving my goal. Or maybe they're specific metrics or milestones like subscriber count or view counts on videos, or having a certain amount of income passively each month. I don't know what your guys' goals are, but we'll definitely talk about this in several episodes in the future because there's a lot to dig into in tracking and measuring your process. So that's kind of tip number 2, is make sure we have some way to check that we're on pace to achieve our goals. The third one is our goal attainable? So this one, it doesn't matter how difficult your goal is. Like, I don't care if you guys have like a super lofty goal or a super simple and easier to obtain goal. One tip I just have for you guys is that you have to realize that if you're setting a super lofty goal, these are definitely going to require more effort and more motivation on yourself to be able to stay on top of yourself to achieve that goal. Because the harder the goal is, there's definitely going to be a lot more that you're going to have to overcome, or a lot more work that you're going to have to put in to achieve that goal. So that's tip number 3. And tip number 4, I kind of already tipped you guys off, but basically create a due date for yourself for each of the things that you need to get done, whether it's the short-term goals or the long-term goals. If we can create a day when we have to get that thing done by, and kind of create a sense of urgency, this is a way that we can kind of get ourselves to either stay motivated or motivate ourselves to make sure that we're staying on top to achieve that goal. So I kind of have it pulled up on this slide here, but this is just one real simple example that I like to use when I'm just making like a quick goal summary sheet or doing some retroactive review. Is I'll typically say, what is the goal that I'm trying to achieve? When is the due date of when I need to have it done by? What are the next steps that I need to take after I finish this current step? And then any special notes or things that go along with that goal. So just real simple template there you guys can use. If you'd like more tools like these types of things, or me to dig into this type of information more in the future, again, let me know in the comments down below, and I can kind of modify the episodes in the future to kind of make sure I focus more on those types of things. So just let me know and I can accommodate. Okay, one thing that I can guarantee is a virtual certainty is that when you guys are trying to achieve your goals, is there will be setbacks and there will be obstacles that get in your way. I can guarantee it because it happens to me all the time whenever I set out to do something. So we have to make sure that we can be adaptable and be able to overcome these problems to achieve our goals. So one thing that I like to kind of do when thinking about goals and making sure that we can overcome obstacles is I will periodically review my goal sheet and kind of reflect on what I've achieved so far, or if something did come up, what sort of changes do I need to make to either adjust the due dates because now it's going to be delayed, or something else in my life came up that is more important that's going to take priority, and then I'll have to come back to these later. So I find that this process of just kind of doing a self-reflection of where I'm at in my life and kind of evaluating the setbacks and adjusting my plan accordingly is very, very helpful, and not feeling discouraged or overwhelmed by everything that's happening in my life and still trying to achieve this goal. So this I find can be very, very helpful, and I will typically do this about every 6 months or maybe every quarter, depending on what type of goal I'm looking at. But usually these are kind of, I call it like my life checker or like my life goals, and I'll do it for specific individual goals as well. But I find that this really helps me kind of stay the course mentally of, am I working towards achieving my goals or what I'm trying to accomplish in my life? And what do I need to do to change my course if something came up? So this is a good practice that I've just kind of gotten into. I would say I started it about 2 years after I started working, and I've just been doing it ever since. So it would be one thing that I would kind of recommend to you guys. And like I kind of mentioned, it also helps you when you kind of go back and reflect. You can kind of say, oh, I really did achieve all this stuff, or I actually did kind of achieve a lot this year. And it's kind of good to kind of feel accomplished about yourself. I know, kind of tying this back into golf for a moment here, because that's probably why most of you guys are here, but golf especially is a very, very brutal sport mentally, because of any sport, one day you have it and then the next day you don't. You could just be off. Something could be happen. Maybe you got a different swing thought. Maybe your body's sore. I don't know. But I find golf, compared to every other sport that I've done, is the hardest on yourself mentally to not get frustrated. But if you're able to like track your progress and do the other things that we kind of mentioned throughout the goal setting segment here, then it's you can kind of see yourself getting better. Or if you have recorded video, you can kind of go back and look and say, oh wow, I did get better. So that kind of adaptability and periodic review I find is very, very helpful for myself. Okay, the last thing I wanted to do in this Manifest Your Destiny segment before we move on to our last segment of the video is I wanted to leave you guys with a little bit of motivation to kind of get yourselves going, or at least get started and get out there trying to set some goals. Because I want it to kind of be sort of like an interactive process where kind of each episode builds on the last, and we can just kind of continually work towards what we're doing to achieve our goals or our dreams. So this kind of picture and this kind of quote, I see it in a lot of different permutations, but basically what all of these are saying is doing something is better than doing nothing. And ultimately, even if it's something as small as 1%, over time, it will add up to a big change. So I don't know what it is that's leaving you guys from just getting out there and starting it. For me, initially, if we just think about one recent goal, it was starting this YouTube channel. So there's a lot of reservations or things that could be preventing you guys from wanting to do that. But even if you just do something as simple as one tiny little thing or one little thing off the checklist each day, then over the course of 1 year, we can see just in this image that you're already 37 times better than you were than if you just did nothing and just kind of maintain the status quo. I really like this quote because it's just kind of like doing nothing at all, you're just going to maintain the status quo. But small, consistent effort over time is going to lead to big results. So that's kind of the motivation I wanted to leave you guys with here is just start doing a little bit of something. Even if it's 5 minutes a day, whatever it is for you guys, just kind of get yourself motivated, because that little action will lead to big results in the future. Okay, the third and final segment of this first episode of our Swing Thoughts series is a segment I'm going to be calling PGA. So yes, it does have the same acronym as the PGA Tour. That was intentional, but it stands for Posture, Grip, and Alignment. And it's an acronym you might have heard before, but these are the important pre-shot fundamentals. And what I find is that a lot of my injuries actually stem from bad habits here, not the actual swing itself. So this segment is going to be focused on fixing these three things, the posture, grip, and alignment within my swing, and how by fixing these things, we can actually avoid injuries and stress on the body. You may have heard this acronym before. I know Brooks Koepka is a big advocate for it, but these are all things that we can work on without actually stressing our body by doing a ton of swings and just beating balls. And by having really good pre-shot fundamentals or fixing those pre-shot fundamentals, we're doing 90% of the things that we need to set ourselves up for a good swing without actually doing it. So that was kind of the premise of this segment, is focusing on those things. And overall, in a larger sense, I want to focus on, by working on these things, especially the posture, but just maintaining a healthier lifestyle or getting into good habits to avoid injuries in general. The biggest thing that I find that is a killer to progress is injuries. Because like if you think, if you're training and training and training but you get injured, then you lose all of that progress and you got to do rehab, training again. So I am a very big proponent of proactive therapy. So I'm going to touch on a bunch of these concepts in future episodes, but the basic premise of the PGA segment is kind of that. We're really focusing on pre-shot fundamentals, things that we can fix either outside of the golf course or without swinging and damaging our body, and then the things that I do to maintain my body proactively and stay healthy to avoid injuries and kind of improve those things in my golf swing. So to start out this segment, I think we should take the same approach that we take from a physical therapy or a posture sense, and that is to work from the ground up. So what I mean by this is when we're talking about posture in general is if I have a really hunched over posture, I don't just want to start by working all this like posture and chest opening stuff, because in actuality, the deeper issue may come from my lower body and how my hips or how I'm sitting and standing. And then by starting with this stuff, I'm just going to be compensating for the issues that are really the cause down below. So this concept is to work from the ground up to make sure that I'm not going to be compensating for anything and fixing something up here only to damage something down below. So the first issue that I'd kind of like to talk about, or the first of the PGA that I kind of like to talk about, is posture. I, throughout my whole life, have had terrible posture. I played a ton of video games and I did gymnastics for like 18 years of my life. So I did a ton of detrimental damage to my posture, even including fracturing parts of my back. So I now, that I work a desk job, am a big proponent of maintaining good posture. And I actually think it would be easier for us to talk about this down in the gym. So let's go ahead and head down there. Okay, so we're down here in the gym, and what I'd kind of like to do for each of these PGA segments in this series is, in each episode, I want to focus on a different part of the PGA acronym. So I'm either going to be talking about posture, I'm going to be talking about grip, or I'm going to be talking about alignment. And in this case, I think the best way for me to kind of share my knowledge or information is to kind of talk about an injury that I've had related to one of those three things, and then how I went about fixing it. Because I feel like other people may have a similar injury or a similar pain, and I'm not necessarily like a medical professional or a medical specialist, but maybe that will trigger something in your mind, and then you can go about getting the proper treatment or doing something to fix that issue. So the first thing I'd like to talk about today is kind of the working our way from the ground up, like I was just talking about, is something called anterior pelvic tilt. So one thing that I found in my golf swing is that the more and more I just started to hit tons and tons of balls and play more and more golf, the more I found that I went from kind of this like upright posture to more and more hunched over. And for those of you guys, and kind of the collapsed shoulders and kind of like this like crane neck here to try and get that good golf posture. But for those of you guys not familiar, anterior pelvic tilt is when your hips, instead of being totally like level or neutral, they kind of got this like forward tilted action. And what this is going to do is it's going to put a ton of pressure on your lower back and a ton of strain on your quads. So the pain that I started to get, because I started to get this pelvic tilt, I was so focused on my golf swing that it just started to creep into my actual walk and my actual everyday posture. But I really started to get some sciatic nerve pain going down my legs and pain in the heels because I was putting so much stress and strain on my hamstrings and my lower back by having this anterior pelvic tilt. So what I needed to do is, once I was able to fix that and kind of make sure that I was always standing with this kind of upright neutral posture versus this kind of like butt out posture, it relieved all that kind of pain. But I also found, in more of a golf swing sense, like when you're hunched over like this, because I already am in kind of like my squat, if you think about some of those things that the guys talk about now on tour, is they're really trying to use that ground force or get into that deep squat and then explode through the ball. When I was in that sort of like kind of anterior pelvic tilt squat position just from the start of my swing, once I took my backswing and then did my downswing, since I was already in my full squat, the only thing that I could do was extend. And that kind of led into that kind of early extension action. Versus if I'm in a more like upright neutral posture, not only am I going to kind of be able to alleviate all that pain that I was having in my everyday life, but once I get to the top, I'm going to be able to stand much taller, and then when I start my downswing, I can kind of load up that super deep squat and then really explode through the ball there. So that I found was kind of one swing flaw that was fixed, that early extension, just by fixing my anterior pelvic tilt posture. So, like I said, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not going to tell you like to go out and do these specific medical procedures and these things. I'm just telling you, this is one thing that I suffered from, and then by fixing that, it was able to not only alleviate that pain, but not even making any swing changes, just posture changes, it improved and helped that kind of early extension action in my swing. So hopefully that information is kind of helpful to you and useful to you guys. But if you did want some exercises, and like I said, let me know in the comments down below which type of information is the most helpful for you guys in each of these type of segments. But I'll just go ahead and give you guys one or two quick exercises that I use to fix the anterior pelvic tilt issue. So what is typically the common cause of this is a really weak core and weak glutes, that your body is not able to stay in this sort of like tucked in, more upright position because the hip flexors are really, really tight, the core is weak, and the glutes are weak. So to do this, or to fix this, what we need to do is we need to stretch our hip flexors, and we need to strengthen our core and strengthen our glutes. So one exercise that I really like is the glute bridge, and there's a couple different modified variations. So again, like I said, if you guys let me know in the comments down below, I can actually talk you through those exercises. but I'm not going to focus on that in this first segment here, kind of the pilot episode. But glute bridges are a really good one. Different types of modified lunges on your knees to stretch the hip flexors, and then of course core. So strengthening these two areas and loosening this up is going to get you in a much more stable position to not have that anterior pelvic tilt. So hopefully that helps. And with that in mind, let's head back up to the studio to wrap up this first episode. All right, that pretty much wraps up our 3 main segments of our first episode of Swing Thoughts. Let's go ahead and do some plugs here at the end. So I don't have any sponsors or brand deals yet, so nothing really to plug there. But I do have a website, so it is odyssey.net. If you guys are familiar with some of my other videos, I have a bunch of guides and instructional stuff, but basically I put all of my written guides and companion guides for all of my instructional videos on that website. So if you guys want, you can go ahead and check those out. There's also some blogs just on random motivational topics or things that I like to talk about. Feel free to check that out. And we do have a store, just got some basic t-shirts on there now, but I haven't really got into the brand building part of the business and the YouTube channel yet. I've just really been trying to learn about YouTube and then try to grow in my specific niches, improve my skills, get better, try a bunch of new things. So really just trying to build out and continue to improve my skills. So nothing really to plug yet, but hopefully we'll have more things to do in this segment in the future. But we'll see. Well, who knows where it goes. But that's all I got for you guys today as far as plugs go. Like I said, this is the first pilot episode. I'm going to do 3 pilot episodes. Then I'm going to look at all of your guys' comments and feedback and kind of evaluate where I want to take this series in the future. So like I said, leave your comments down below. Do the algorithm things, boop that like button, hit the subscribe button, all that good stuff. Really does help. Subscriber count, I always like to see that number slowly go up. So if you guys could do that, that would be very helpful. But all the stuff helps the algorithm. So however you guys want to interact with the community is fine with me. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this first episode and found it useful. And as always, I look forward to seeing you guys out on the course. Have a good one.